And we're live. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm going to be doing a live Q&A, just answering your questions, whatever questions you have. So let me know what they are. I am doing a new tool here, so we'll see how well this ends up working because I've actually never used this tool, so I really don't know how it's going to work out. But yeah, I'm here to answer your questions, and I figure, hey, why not trial by fire by using this new tool to actually do the streaming stuff and answering questions and doing all those sorts of things, as you might be familiar with that I do already. I haven't really done it on Facebook or Periscope yet, so both of those things are live as well. That's definitely a newer thing for me. Haven't really been using Facebook much a whole lot lately, but I did want to see if there's some reason to do live streaming there. I do also have it on YouTube, so hopefully I've got some of you guys from YouTube, so say hello. Where are you from? What's going on? Hey, what's up? How's it going? Welcome. Hey, how's it going? Good to see you guys. Oh, this is cool. I like this. This is a little bit easier than the setup I had. Can we build ML software and install it on Windows? Yes. So absolutely you can. So I would say that a big thing that you could do with creating machine learning software that works on all platforms is by using something called Onyx. So Onyx is it's a really cool tool. So check that out. Yusuf, I will. Thank you. Wow, it's like a huge upgrade, don't you guys think? Hey, welcome. Mexico, nice. I do not know how to pronounce the city name, but thanks for coming out. Hey, Blake, YouTube alerts are working. Awesome. That's great to hear, Blake. Big fan. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Second live. Nice. Welcome. Glad to have you out. Hey, what's up? How's it going? What's up, Diego from Argentina? Man, I want to visit Argentina someday. I'll bring my whole family down there after the COVID stuff ends. You know what I mean? But thanks for coming out. So I typically get really far behind in these things. So those super chats are definitely the easiest way to get this going. Although I don't actually know if the super chats are active or not. So if you guys let me know, maybe that'll work. That's for those of you who are on YouTube. I have no idea if there's anyone on Facebook or on Periscope at all. Like I said, this is a brand new thing that I'm testing out, and I figured I would just do it by asking you guys some questions and stuff. So what are my thoughts on asynchronous Django? Super exciting to see asynchronous Django come throughout. I'm really, really looking forward to when they start to adopt it into the ORM, or at least more so into the ORM than they currently have. But there's a lot of ways to go there. So yeah, you like the way I wink. Interesting. Okay. Hey, Rez, I'm doing well. Thanks for coming out. Good to have you here. How are you doing? Make a clone project using Django and React. This is funny because I quite literally just released, well, I mean, I guess not just, but in March, I released my Tweet Me 2 project, which is Django and React, all on YouTube. So it's definitely on there. It's about 12 hours. So yeah, check it out. Hey, welcome. Rez, I'm glad you're excited for the upcoming podcast. That's tomorrow in about 13 hours. Yeah, really, really looking forward to chatting with Danny. He's quite active on all of the different social media things. So we'll see what happens. I hope you guys come out to it. If not, just watch the recording later. It's going to be on YouTube. So if you're watching on Periscope or Facebook, that's where I'll be. It's on YouTube. You have an online class right now, but you came here for live. Hey, cool. This is the online class, I guess, in a way, because I will be answering any of your questions. So ask them away. Okay. So do I know of any good React projects? What do you mean by that? Do you mean like things that you could build in React or things that have been built in React? That's let me know. When you're doing ML and AI, what would be the front end and back end? So you'll need to serve the machine learning or AI algorithm in some form. So however you end up serving it will end up most likely having a REST API that you'll use. And one of the easiest ways to do that with machine learning and AI is using something like Flask, Fast API. Both of those are great. Of course, you could use Django too, but Django's just a little bit, there's a lot more involvement in setting up Django to get that running. You could also run these as microservices on like a Kubernetes cluster or something like that, but that's a lot more work than just a Django project or Flask or Fast API. You could also just run an Express.js application as well. But most likely, if you're doing ML and AI right now, most likely, I think it's safe to assume that it's probably in Python. So that's why I mentioned those ones. Is Fast AI or Fast API? I think I might have said Fast AI. I meant Fast API earlier, but is Fast API going to replace Django since it's fast? No, I think they both have their place. I do not think that speed, as far as how fast a framework is the only factor you need to take in when you're actually building something. Django is very fast itself, but it also has a lot of features that Fast API does not have by default. And Django has a lot more opinions about those features. So yeah, thanks for the question. All right, how much Django do you really need to know to get a job? Big fan. Thank you from Bangladesh. Mahadi, thanks for the question. So definitely need to know Django models, views, templates, most likely Django forms, most likely the Django REST framework. You need to be able to build a full-on Django project that includes testing, user authentication. There's a number of other things that I could probably go into there, but those are some of them off the top of my head. If you don't know how to do those things, you will definitely not be able to get a job. But I also don't think that you would just do Django, right? So you probably should know some JavaScript as well that would work with your Django project, at least a little bit. You don't have to be an expert at all, but you need to know if somebody's JavaScript is failing with your Django backend, you'd probably need to know how to help them figure that out. Is Django good for generating business reports rapidly? Yes, you would use Django and Celery. You could use asynchronous Django as well, but I actually like putting it into a task queue instead. So Celery allows you to have a task queue with something like Redis as your actual database or data store for the tasks themselves that Celery creates. And I actually have a brand new course about all of this, not the reports necessarily, but the Celery and all that. So time and tasks 2 on cfe.sh. That is where you'll go. So let's see here, cfe.sh. I'm putting that in the chat. Maybe that went somewhere. I have no idea. It's loading. We'll see. It's a tool I've never used before. So yeah. Paul from Germany. Hey, welcome. You have a nice day too. It's probably early in Germany, I'd imagine, right? Like really early. I can't say for sure, but it's getting later here. You let me know, Paul. Thanks for coming out. So switching from, there we go. So switching from automation systems, saying industrial to IoT, which stuff do you want me to focus on? So I'm not fully sure exactly what you're trying to say here. You're switching from those things to IoT, the Internet of Things. So you're going to want to know, most likely you're going to want to learn how to use Python at least to control sensors and using something like a Raspberry Pi. I can't remember what Arduino uses other than Python. I want to say it's C++, but I can't say for sure. So you're going to want to figure out what those embedded systems do really, really well. So Raspberry Pi is a really easy, low-hanging fruit to get into that. And there's a lot of libraries that Python has to control motors and sensors and all of that cool stuff. So be sure to check those things out. You know what I mean? Now, I'm actually kind of thinking that this version of live streaming, I'm almost thinking it might be better to have my OBS still going and being able to switch on the fly with what I want. So let's see if this works. So bear with me. If it doesn't, I will be right back if for some reason it's not working. So I'm going to switch cameras. And okay, so far so good. And don't have it set up, but let's see if I can try one thing here. Cool. Okay, so yeah, I think that might be how I'll end up doing it when I need to go live. Seeing something like this, I mean, it looks ridiculous, but this is what I'm using. And so it's StreamYard right here, but I have it hooked up through OBS Studio, which is what I was using before for broadcasting alone. But I wanted the multiple camera angles for these live streams, and that's actually something I was hoping to test. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, cool. Sorry for the blurriness. I've got the autofocus on, so that definitely causes some issue. But I really wanted to be able to do this stuff. You know what I mean? Switching different camera angles at any time in my studio. So that's cool. I'm glad that works out. Okay, so let's see here. Where did I leave off? Make a video with machine learning integrated with Django. Definitely intend to do that at some point. Not sure when yet. Thanks for the question. I do think that there is a really good YouTube channel. I haven't watched enough of it yet, but I know that he's done this, and that is on PyPlane. So check out that on YouTube. Yeah. So I will do it though, and blog on deploying machine learning models with Django. Yeah, I just did something related to Onyx in production, and you can just really easily use that on a Django project. I'd say pretty easily. Maybe it's still complicated to do, but in the near future, I will do this, guys. Don't worry. It's too important of a subject to not have as a big part of something that I'm going to be doing in the future. So it's a good thing to, bug me about. Keep bugging me. I love it. Skills, what's up? How's it going? What's the scope of Django in the future? Like, how's it going to change? It's going to be a lot more asynchronous stuff, I would imagine, and probably increases in speed. I'm really hoping that they actually integrate the Django REST framework into Django itself. I don't know if they'll do that. There's no like talk of that I've seen, but we'll see. I mean, the Django REST framework's amazing. I think it's highly worth using, and since it exists and since it's already great, it already works with Django really well. So by all means, use that. That's one of the things that I'm really hoping for. But I will say that Django itself is going to be more likely to be a lot more asynchronous stuff as added features. But Django, the core part of Django, isn't going to change a whole lot, according to a lot of their core developers. So, yeah, I think maybe support for other backends like MongoDB. There is the Django project that has MongoDB in there, but Django itself isn't really made for NoSQL backends. So hopefully that answers your question. I don't know. Thanks, Rez. Appreciate it. Is Django good for... Hey, I just got this one. I can't remember if there's a way to yes, there is. Cool. There's a way to put you guys in timeout if you're asking too many of the same exact question. Like this guy. Okay. So can you use a Kinter or tkinter app to build a machine learning app for Windows? You absolutely can. So the tricky part, though, is actually bundling a machine learning app using tkinter or Kinter. So that part's actually not trivial at all. So perhaps the machine learning part of this actually exists on the cloud somewhere. So you actually have an API service that does it. That's actually what Photoshop's new thing does. So Photoshop just released a bunch of machine learning and AI tools that actually build into it, and you can change the levers and all that stuff, and it will automatically adjust some things, which is cool. For sure. And I think that's definitely a big part of the future that we'll see. But Photoshop itself did not bundle in the actual model that's doing that. They use their cloud services to make that happen. So I think that's how you should do it as well. The other thing is, what if your model needs to be changed and the person's not updating the app? you need to be able to do that on the fly. So having it as a cloud service, I think, is probably better overall, unless there's a really good reason to have it locally. Let's say, for instance, you need to process video for a user. In that case, you might not be wanting to upload all of the video. You'd probably want to keep it on device. So yeah. My classes are helpful. Thank you. Glad you enjoy them. Thanks for watching. Shout out, please. All right. Skills are pro. Skills are pro. Does that mean you're really into R? Ooh, that's an interesting username. Haven't seen that one before. Do you think it's fine I learned JavaScript and React as my first language and skip HTML and CSS? You can absolutely learn JavaScript without knowing HTML and CSS. But if you want to use React, I think you could also learn React without HTML and CSS, but JavaScript itself was meant to improve the user interface of HTML and CSS, right? So that's what it was created for. So to saying that you're going to sit here and only do JavaScript, I mean, you might do backend things that are JavaScript only, but if you're building web applications, you definitely need to know at least some HTML and some CSS. You don't have to be a master at it at all to then move into JavaScript and React to be amazing at those things. CSS is incredibly hard to get right. So, I think CSS is harder to get right than JavaScript is. But that's me because I'm a programmer, right? So I'm not into spending hours and hours moving one little block over a few inches, So that's why I use tools like Bootstrap. Yeah. Anyways. Hey, what's up? Glad you're welcome. Thank you. So how to manage multiple sites from a single Django application. This is also known as multi-tenant applications. So this is, actually, no, I don't think that's what you mean. You probably mean one Django application with multiple sites. There's a really cool tool called Django Hosts. So let me just pull this thing up here. Let's see if this works. I'm positive if it will, but let's take a look. What do you guys think, huh? Are you enjoying this kind of broadcast? And I have literally no clue if anyone from Facebook is on here. I'm guessing probably not. It looks like I have one like from Facebook, so I don't think so. But then again, I don't remember the last time I posted on Facebook at all. Okay, so let's take a look at Django Hosts real quick. So this is it, right? So Django Hosts is an amazing tool, and it allows you to manage different subdomains. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up, I'm not sure if I'll be able to find it right off the bat, but if you have different subdomains, what you can do is you can then use those subdomains as a host for any sort of CNAME or any other domain. And then that way you're using Django hosts or subdomains of your primary domain and allowing Django hosts to be on there. Or other websites to be on there, be hosted on there through Django hosts. Now, you'll have to have additional configuration for allowed hosts like Django does, right? So you'd have to have some sort of configuration for that to allow other ones to do it. So it's not a trivial task, but that's at least a way to get started. Next question, Flask versus Django. So Django is batteries included. Flask is like, hey, here's a tool. You still got to build it. Right. So you can absolutely use them to do the exact same things. Right. Django can just do it faster if you know Django. But if you know Flask, you could probably do it faster in Flask. But they both can really accomplish a lot of the exact same things, and they can do it in almost the same way because they're both web application frameworks. It's just Django just ships with a lot more opinions on how you should do it. Flask doesn't, which is good and bad. A lot of things that we can talk about that. Do you personally or professionally use design principles in your code? Is it worth using in freelance projects? When you say this, do you mean best practices? In that case, I definitely try to stick with best practices, both from what I've learned from other Django developers, as in their code on GitHub, but also from what Django itself is opinionated about. Those are the principles I use as much as I can in my projects, and I absolutely try my best to stick with them. Either way, even if you don't use those principles, be as consistent as you possibly can in all of your projects. That way, it's really easy to unpack them if you're somebody else, or easy for you to then transition to maybe better practices. So yeah. Which books do I recommend for Django? I do actually think that 2 Scoops of Django is a great book. I haven't seen the most recent version, but Danny Greenfield has been really, really active in the Django community for a long time. So that might be worth checking out. Excuse me. So yeah. Cool. I don't actually know how much longer I'm going to be on here, guys. So thanks for coming out and chatting with me. I will say that I will try to answer quite a bit more questions here in the future, right? So if you do have a lot of questions, that just go ahead and subscribe on YouTube. I'm definitely on there. So cfe.sh/YouTube. I need to get those links back up, but cfe.sh/YouTube is a way to do it. Let's see here. I wonder if this will do it. So cfe.sh/YouTube. Oh yeah, this looks like it might do it. Hang on. Check this out. There you go. That's so silly. Okay, but that's where I'm going to be doing live Q&As like this in the future. So if you do have questions like this, please let me know. I will definitely go on there. I'm laughing at this question. Am I just taking easy questions? No, I'm taking any question, but I'm putting you in timeout, buddy. That is crazy to, like, I don't understand why people do that. Like, why ask the question 1,000 times? Is it just, I mean, it must be just a troll, right? Like, it must be. You need an admin to put these people in timeout. Yes, Josh, I agree with you, but you know what? These live streams make, like, sometimes on a really, really good day, I'll probably make about $20 from an hour-long live stream, but most of them make about $3. So you, Josh, I don't know if you would sit here for an hour helping moderate these things. I really don't. So we got to do what we got to do. Man, I got to get rid of that banner. Sorry, that's getting old real fast. Is there a way to, like, just have it there? There we go. That's better. I did say ticket. I did make it scroll. I thought it was just going to go across one time. I didn't know it'd be like an actual ticker banner, like what you see in like the news. Oh man. Okay, so I'm going to go to more recent questions here. Hey, from Brazil. Yeah, Python and Django are great. I agree with you. Python. Love Python. It's what really got me into programming. It's what hooked me. Okay, so what's the difference between WebSockets and plain sockets? WebSockets can be connected over the internet. So they have the WS, the WebSocket protocol that they use on the internet. Sockets themselves, as far as I know, do not have that. So their sockets are typically between servers and over a network, and like LAN, most likely. But I mean, there is a way to get to an actual socket through the internet, but WebSockets themselves have actual internet connective protocols, just like HTTP does. Good question. Is learning WordPress worth it in 2020? Hey, if you want to learn WordPress, go ahead. But I think there's still a ton of blogs that are written on WordPress. And I actually still recommend that as well. Like, if you're going to write a blog, why not use WordPress? It's already done. But if you want the challenge of building a software and then managing that software, then yeah, use something like Django or Flask or Fast API or Express.js or Adonis. Like, there's a lot of different things that you can do to launch a blog. WordPress itself is just so mature. It's been around for like 15 years, and so many sites run on it. That doesn't mean it's the best solution for everything, but if your goal is really just to blog and get some traction with blogging, that might be a great way to do it. Another great way to do it would be just using Medium. So I don't know, like if you were to ask me like, hey, should I start a blog? The answer is probably yes, because writing is great for your thinking and it helps you learn. But then also, where would you start that blog? I would say just go on Medium. Like if you don't have an audience, especially, just go on Medium. That's like the easiest way to do it. And if you're into the software side of audience, which I would imagine most of you are, you would probably want to do I think it's called dev.to. Let's see, dev.to. That's another community that might be worth checking out as well, because that has a lot of places where you can write your own tutorials and blogs and stuff like that. I haven't actually written anything there myself, but perhaps it'd be worth it. That was the thought. Hemeth, what's up, man? Sometimes I am standing. Yes, right now I am currently standing. That's why you see me kind of swaying a little bit. I don't love sitting pretty much ever, but especially for high energy, like with these live chats, or I just got finished recording some tutorials. I want to have that energy, and if I'm sitting, sometimes I like lean back and I'm just like chilling. It's like not as good of energy for me. I mean, some people have it differently, but I also like listening to music. So in the middle of any given class, I'm like, I'm listening to some music. But of course, in a class itself, I try to not move that much. I try not to move that much on these live chats either. But, it just happens. I don't know. Whereas, yeah, Medium's great. I really, really like Medium. Some people are making pretty good living on just writing on Medium, which is pretty cool to see that there is now a blogging platform that you can earn a living from. So it's not just like, hey, you got to buy my book or something like that, where that's like WordPress and Twitter. That's often what it is. Maybe not always. That's probably not true. But, basically, you're not getting paid to write tweets. Like they never share ad revenue with you. Medium at least shares a membership revenue with you, which is similar to like YouTube with the ad revenue. Maybe at some point Twitter will do that too, but I doubt it. What are Go routines? Co-routines or Go routines? I'm not sure. Go routines must be related to Go itself, that are some form of co-routine, I would imagine. Let's see. So can we use MongoDB and Firebase as a database of Django and React.js? So I haven't used Firebase enough to say for sure that Django can be integrated with Firebase using Firebase as a database. I don't know if Django would need to be in that equation. I think that at that point you might as well use Fast API or Flask and using Firebase as your backend. Then MongoDB use something called Django. That's Django with two O's instead of an A in there. So DJONGO, Django. That is absolutely something that you could probably do really quickly. The React.js portion of this doesn't really matter as much. So yeah. Hemeth, are you chatting with somebody else? I literally just talked about this. Kinter music player with a machine learning algorithm in it. Yes, you can, but the packaging is hard. You like it. I see you everywhere now, huh? You just follow me around. I love it. What is my full name? My name is Justin Mitchell. Thanks for the question. Please guide you over Zoom. You're a student programmer in India. I don't actually hold private sessions at this point. Thank you for that question. I think, big part of the reason I don't do private is because, I guess I would at some point, and depending on like how hard the students are willing to work. But the other thing is, if I'm actually doing these private sessions, that means that I'm not researching, I'm not developing new series that actually benefit a lot more people. Doing those private sessions really only benefits one single person, which, is not necessarily my like, I think that's really good. I think it's really good to benefit and do these one-on-ones. Absolutely. But the thing is, I mean, even on this live stream, I didn't plan it, didn't do anything. Looks like there's about 100 people on here, right? So if I was doing one-on-ones with all of you, like, I would never be able to do anything else, right? So at some point you gotta scale it up a bit, and doing those one-on-ones is just incredibly expensive to do. For me, like, time wise, like, it just takes a lot of time to do those things. So I try to stick to things that are a lot more scalable for everyone involved. Unfortunately, that's not the best way for every single person to learn, but that's what Google is for. Google really helps with all that stuff, you know? How do we add a datetime widget for Django Forms? This is a really good question for Google or Stack Overflow. I think there's a lot of examples of that. Yeah. Hey, Guy, I played basketball. What was my skill level? I played up until I played as like organized leagues up until high school, and then I got injured. So it's my junior year in high school. I got injured on the varsity team, and then senior year I got I rehabbed and everything. I played 10 games, got re-injured. And then in college, I played intramural leagues, also got re-injured. So definitely not much further than that, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I don't know. Like, I don't know if basketball was actually in my future. I think this was, right? I think I'm more suited to programming and being a teacher. I think those things are like, you know, those are my those are now my passions and hobbies. I still enjoy basketball, but it's just not where my head goes all the time. My head goes to software, programming, entrepreneurship, machine learning, AI, robotics. All of that's what I'm thinking about all the time. Not really basketball anymore. Where there was a point that I was thinking about basketball all the time, and I wanted to be in the NBA and all those things. So, thanks for the question. Okay. You want to ask, is my career a programmer or am I a full-time YouTuber? I'm definitely not a full-time YouTuber. I do not earn nearly enough to be a full-time anything on YouTube. YouTube is great. I do think that there is a potential to do that for my channel, for a lot of channels. But I think with programming channels, what you'll end up seeing, like what I do, is I use YouTube as a means to introduce a lot of people to a lot of the things that I do. And then I have a bunch of courses on my website. So cfe.sh or codingforentrepreneurs.com. That is primarily where I earn a living, is that teaching stuff. YouTube I make a little bit of money from, but definitely not enough. It's unfortunate because you see, or you seemingly think that you're producing a lot of value for the people that are watching, but it's not necessarily translated to you, right? So if I have a ton of ads on something, that I don't get all that value, unfortunately, because it's all YouTube. It's not my ads. Like, the ads that you see in between these things, I have nothing to do with those things. However, I do know that sponsorships and like working with companies to do all sorts of things, that might be you're into making a full-time living on YouTube itself. But I mean, I sell courses otherwise. That's my primary source of living at this point. You know, someday, you know what I'd actually love is to have just a bunch of sponsors, a good number of them, and just do all of this for free all the time. But unfortunately, I'm just not there yet. So maybe at some point I will be, but at this point I am not. So yeah. Let's see here. Have you done any projects with Python and blockchain API? So have I done anything with blockchain is what I guess the question is. Only some tinkering, not enough to be like, yeah, I've done this, and this, go check it out. So yeah. I do find it a very fascinating thing, and it's probably going to be really critical to our future with all sorts of things, not just cryptocurrency. So I'm just really into machine learning right now. So I've got this huge stack of books right here. I'll show you guys. It's mostly related to data science and machine learning. Calculus. So this one right here, if you're interested in starting with something, that's a good one. Deep Learning for Coders by Jeremy Howard. Hands-on machine learning with scikit-learn, Keras, and TensorFlow. That's also a really good one for beginners. If you want like the nuts and bolts from the beginning, or something like in NumPy, the deep learning, grokking deep learning from Andrew Trask. That's what I recommend there. Not that was your question at all. That was a completely different question. So yeah, I mean, I guess so I have this on Facebook. I also did a Periscope. I didn't know if that would go on actual Twitter or not, or if it just goes on Periscope. I don't know how that works. I just decided to throw it in and not really look into it too much. But let me see. Oh yeah, there it is. It shows me live on Twitter. It's just I have like 1,000 followers on Twitter right now, so it's not exactly something that's just blowing up. You know what I mean? So I do have. I think I am the sole person on Twitter right now. That's hilarious. Okay, and the Facebook stuff. Geez, I don't even know if I have Facebook on my phone or not. I do not anymore. Do you guys still use Facebook? I don't know. With all the things that are going on with Facebook, I'm just not sure if it's something worth checking. Let's see here. Yeah, I can't tell. But I do have one like on Facebook, so I would imagine there's at least one person on there. Let's see here. I have heard that some of these live streams are really a lot of times meant for you guys to connect with each other. So I probably should do other kinds of live streams. I just haven't figured out what. I did a little test earlier, a couple weeks ago, on me actually live streaming a course while I was creating it. But I realized, for me personally, I felt like obligated to talk to the live stream, which is like means that I wasn't focusing on what I should have been doing, which was the course. So I just stopped doing that. All right. How do you get? Is a job available for a fresher in the MERN and Django? I'm sure there is. There's probably stuff out there. That's funny. Guide us on GSOC and Python's organization. GSOC. Google Summer of Code. Is that what you're talking about? Maybe. Man, that's too far behind. I'm going to scroll down. So one of the things, Facebook is the worst. Yeah. This tool right here live streams it. But I don't know. I mean, if it doesn't seem like anyone is actually on the live stream on Facebook, or at least responding, at least. It doesn't seem like it. You're reading the Hands-on ML. It's really good. Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Hemeth. I saw somebody else I wanted to chat with. Tech Realms, the wildfires in California any better? They're better than they were. Like, they aren't near me anymore, as far as I know. I think they're all gone now. That put me out for about a week from the studio, which is unfortunate. But hey, we're back now, so it's good. Let's see. How do I get somebody's IP address? It's my friend's birthday, and I want to spook her. Oh man, is that really what you want? Check out Network Chuck. He's got a bunch of stuff on those sorts of things. Well, I do a series on Python microservices with continuous integration and continuous deployment. Definitely have to do that at some point. There we go. Kevin McAllister. Do you think new people can sell courses too as a spacesuit credit? This is a good question. So absolutely, anybody can sell a course. When I joined selling courses in 2013, people were saying the same thing. In 2013, way too many online courses already. And that's probably still true. But the difference is realizing that if you are trying to sell courses, no matter what they are, it's not going to happen the way you hope, probably, right? It's not going to be like, I'm selling a course, here's my living, right? Now I'm making a living selling courses. Because for me, luckily, I have had students since 2013 that still every once in a while I hear from them, or they re-enroll, or they take new courses and stuff like that. So since I've been doing it as long as I have, I've built a reputation, at least a little bit of a reputation for the courses that I create. So hopefully you guys, when you actually do sign up for them, they're like, yes, this is what I want to learn from. And I know that Justin put in the work to make this happen, which is what I do. I definitely put in the work to make these courses happen. Sometimes is it executed as best it could be? I try, I can't say for sure. Now, that being said, if you're wanting to actually sell courses yourself, the question really is, who are you trying to help? And find the smallest niche you possibly can and go after that niche. So when I say niche, it could be like, how do you make, or actually a bunch of machine learning recommendations. There's a lot of people that are looking into machine learning, but how do you actually do machine learning for JavaScript? That's not nearly as popular or talked about as Python, but there definitely are JavaScript developers that are actively looking for that. So that might be a niche that's really worthwhile, but it's a really complicated thing to get there, right? So the other part of this is that you have to take the knowledge that you do have, whatever expert knowledge you have, that people actually want to learn from. And then what I would do is do the low stake way of getting them to learn from you. So that's YouTube, that's Skillshare. That's not that I'm a huge fan of Skillshare per se, and this is definitely not a post of them. They took down one of my courses. I'm not even sure why. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of Skillshare. But anyway, so I would say go to these low-hanging fruit places where you can teach, and it's like really low barrier to entry for your students. Then you can write blog articles and stuff like that relates to it, and realize that if you are going to do this, it's going to be a commitment. It's not something that's just going to happen overnight. Now, it definitely does happen to people overnight. For me, it sort of felt like it happened overnight, but it was actually not at all that way, because the way I present material was honed over years, right? And then that just translated to how I present software and coding material. Some people still say I talk way, way, way too fast. Other people say, hey, it's perfect. You're going fast, and I can rewatch it and know that I'm not going to be bored, hopefully. So I think it's a question that's worth checking out. But keep this in mind. This is something that especially with courses in themselves, right? There's a really good chance if you live in a fairly industrial neighborhood anywhere in the world, there's most likely several schools nearby, right? For all kinds of ages of schools. So those schools are niched to that demographic, physically to that demographic. It's not going to be any different for online. It's just online, I can talk to you across the world. If anything, online, it's not even close to being too crowded for teachers. There's going to be a lot more, because there's just a lot of fascinating, interesting things that even the best teachers won't cover. And here's the other part. Me, myself, like I can only cover so many things at any given time. That's how there are other Django courses, right? Like I wasn't the first Django teacher at all, but I was certainly one of the early ones and one of the most active ones for a long time. And then other Django teachers came in and taught things in areas that I just never covered or never was interested in doing it, or they just did it with their own spin. And that's what really did it. So Kevin McAllister, I know that's not your real name, but Kevin McAllister, thank you for the question. I think it's a good topic to chat about more anyway. Kevin, so you're learning machine learning too. How far have you learned? Any projects? Yes, I've done a ton of projects. These books that I just showed you are to hone my skills. I think that now I'm actually at a point where I'm starting to think in terms of building any given application from the AI side first, or the machine learning side first. I do intend to have a lot of courses on this here in the near future. For example, I know now how I can actually take a video similar to like this video and have my AI watch the entire video and parse out different parts that I find interesting based off of either the text or whatever's going on screen. It's not trivial to get there. and it's really not that great yet. But I know that I could build something that would sort of work to do all of that, which I think is really exciting. The other thing is, predicting like a time series analysis, so something like that. Those sorts of things are also really cool stuff that I'm feeling really good about as well. There's more, Facebook is dead. That's so funny. Discord. At some point I will have a Discord, but it's going to be for members of codingforentrepreneurs.com. So yeah. Yeah, Rez, they took down my course in Skillshare. They said something along the lines as I was promoting another platform, which I might have mentioned my website, but on Skillshare, on Udemy, I actually don't mention those things very much. And if I do, it's usually related to a blog post. It's not like, hey, leave Skillshare and join my course on my website. Like, I realize that's not a good thing to do on Skillshare. But I think the thing is my course was getting popular, and they decided that they didn't want another example. Like, I think there was a few other big profile names on Skillshare that ended up essentially taking a lot of Skillshare's marketing and their people over to their platform. And I totally understand why they took it off, in the sense that they think I was stealing, but honestly, I actually don't think that I was. That was not my intention at all. And I told them all that, and they still took it down. They still kept it down. So it's like, well, why am I going to continue to add content to your library if you're just going to take it down because I mentioned my website? It's like silly to assume that a software developer is not going to have a website. It's silly to assume that almost anyone's not going to have a website, and that you might have a newsletter or a blog that goes in with it. You know what I mean? So I don't know, whatever. It is what it is. Thus, a lot more YouTube. You know what I mean? How do you learn Django faster, books or videos or books? Neither. Creating a project. That's the fastest way you'll learn it. Figure out something you want to solve and do it using Django or any project, any application itself. So the new DigitalOcean app platform looks really cool. So I'm actually really excited to see that there's another competitor in the space that's very similar to Heroku. My early tests were not promising. It took a really long time for my application to build, and it kept failing. So I haven't reached out to DigitalOcean on that part. I was just dabbling a little bit. And I think I know why, is because they're taking the code, and actually it seems like they're building a Docker container for each code release. That's different than how Heroku does it. As far as I understand, Heroku has their own way of actually containerizing the application that's not using Docker. I think DigitalOcean uses Docker, the same sort of building process from that Heroku open sourced, but using a Docker container to actually run the application, which is really smart. I actually think that that's like a really clever way to do it now. Unfortunately, building a Docker container for big applications takes a long time. So that's not always the best method. So we'll see. I think it's really cool, but I definitely want to play around with it more in the future. I actually think, honestly though, like if I'm going to be building Docker container applications, I'm going to be using Google Cloud Run. It's a serverless container application to do it. If I don't need Celery or a worker process running next to that application, then that's what I'll do. If you do need Celery next to a serverless application, you can just spin up a virtual machine to run just the Celery portion and still connect into the same database and all that. So that's also stuff that you could probably do in DigitalOcean, but there's a lot more configuration that you need to get to what I just said. So hopefully DigitalOcean and Linode, hopefully both of them bring out a serverless Docker container process that actually competes with Google Cloud Run. I would love that. Absolutely love that. The big thing about serverless, as you may know, serverless will scale up to meet demand, but it'll also scale down to zero, literal zero, where you're paying nothing if there's no demand. And that's in seconds even, microseconds, seconds, more than that. So having it run on a Docker container means that you as the developer have control over the environment of that application, and you can still run the application and bundle all the things you might need to do and have it run, which I think is really, really cool. Oh, man. Putting you in timeout, buddy. Don't do that. I just recommended a bunch. Here, let me show you again. You can take a screenshot of this or something, but I have them all stacked up here. There they are. Those are some good ones. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay. Really, I think the bottom three, the one that's above the calculus book, those bottom three are probably my top choices right now. The top three, those are like more finance and data analysis stuff. Probabilistic deep learning, I haven't even opened yet. That I literally just got that book, and they literally just started shipping them out. Literally. Jeez. So yeah, thanks for the question. Can you compare C# and Python? No, because I don't know C# enough. Is that bad? C# is much harder than Python, I'll say that. Let's see here. Hey, what's up, man? I got to write some YouTube API script to get these notified. You keep missing these. Yeah, I probably should do a better job about communicating them too. But if I stick with StreamYard.com, which is what I'm using right now, then you can, if you follow my Facebook channel and my Twitter, then you will see it somewhere in there. But I think if you hit the bell icon, don't you get notified for the bell icon? If you have notifications active on YouTube and you have the bell icon, won't you be notified for that? I think, maybe not. Let's see here. I think I skipped one that I thought was interesting. Blake, so how long did it take for my channel to become monetized on YouTube? Not long, because so when I started teaching online, I released a course on Udemy, and then about a month later on Kickstarter. Both of those things were just absolutely taken off, and I needed a way to launch more I wanted to launch more courses. So on Udemy, I had, I don't know, five courses or so. Each one of them needed to make sure that somebody set up their course, or at least I needed a baseline course for everyone to do. So I just put it on YouTube. So everyone had free access to taking this one single course on YouTube as like a prereq for all of my other courses. And I got subscribers really fast for that. So that means that I was able to monetize almost just as quickly. So it didn't really take me that long, but I had the great fortune of riding a wave that was happening with Coding for Entrepreneurs itself, Udemy, and Kickstarter. It's like a perfect time to do all three of those things to get my YouTube channel up. But since then, I haven't respected YouTube nearly as much as I probably should have. I probably should have been doing stuff like this since 2013, but I hadn't. Part of it was I didn't know if I wanted to spend an hour of time chatting with a bunch of people when I could be making courses. But what I realize now is this is a great way for me to learn from you guys, right? So to connect with you guys a lot more than in my classes, right? So we can just chat here for a while, talk about whatever. I'll answer your questions. So that's something that I'm starting to do a lot more of. And maybe YouTube ends up turning into something a lot bigger. It grows every month. So that's cool. So we'll see. But codingforentrepreneurs.com is still my focus. That's still where I put everything. All of my courses are on there. I would say my best stuff is on there too. At least it's always on there first. So yeah, a big part of that is like, that's like my business, you know, like I wanted to make a business out of it. I wanted to grow, and I want to actively find people who are willing to put in the investment in themselves to make those things happen. And you don't always find that on YouTube. At least on YouTube, you do definitely have people like that, myself included, right? I'm a YouTuber. I watch YouTube all the time as well, and I learn from YouTube. But what you also find a lot is people that don't actually do the work. They watch 10 seconds, and ask a very obvious question that happens in the video. And then it's like, hey, you didn't even do the work. So that happens way more on YouTube. It rarely happens on my website because I control every aspect of that website. So did that answer your question, or was that way too much context? Probably way too much context, because that is what I do. So is the Python Finance Cookbook from your stack of books good? That's another one I haven't dived into yet. The bottom three are the ones that I spend most of the time in, which probably means that I'm just not ready to actually dedicate much time to Python for Finance in this cookbook itself. I'm sure there's a lot of great tools in there. And I really want to get into more finance things in Python. But unfortunately, I would imagine a lot of you feel like this is watching things about finance is not always a lot of fun, unless it's like trying to game the stock market or something like that. How's the Raspberry Pi and IoT cookbook? That sounds interesting. I should check that out. I really want to have a lot of these authors on my podcast. That'd be amazing. So hopefully at some point I'll start to reach out to them and get them where I can actually pick their brain about all of these different things. Is Google good for enterprises? Yes, of course Google is. Is Django good for enterprises? Yes, I think it is. Hey, Steve, what's up? Why do you recommend to install 32-bit Python, not 64-bit? I don't remember ever recommending that, but definitely pick the best for your system. So if you have a 64-bit system, use 64-bit. Can you use Kiwi to make medical apps? Maybe. The problem is like security and privacy. Medical apps are a little bit different. They have more rigid standards for that. So if you actually, at least in the US, I don't know how it is everywhere, but if you actually want it to be in practice, I'm not sure if Kiwi is the best choice. I don't love Kiwi. I've yet to see a Kiwi application that is incredibly successful, right? So like a company that's like, hey, we're a successful mobile app company, and here's our Kiwi app that's just crushing it, right? I just don't see many, if any. Like Facebook has React Native, and you've got Instagram is probably made in React Native. I can't imagine it not being. You've got Facebook's mobile application in React Native. So, those are two beacons of shining examples of just one other tool that Kiwi probably won't ever live up to. This is not to bash the people that like Kiwi or use Kiwi at all. It's just I've never found that as being the best choice for mobile app development. Python, I don't think, is great with GUIs or GUIs. Python's just not great for front end. That's how I feel about it. But that's probably because I come from the web. Like I started with web development. So HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is what I started with. So that factors into that as well. What is the most decision that confused you? This question, probably. Oh man, books to learn Django. Don't have an answer there. Maybe Django book, maybe? I don't know. Wow. Okay. I think we've caught up to pretty much all of the latest questions. It's great. Cloud Run is not necessarily a Heroku alternative though, right? So it doesn't have everything that you want. DigitalOcean is probably the best alternative because in all of my years and all of the people I've brought to Heroku, I have not heard from their team once. DigitalOcean, I've heard from their team, and I've heard from several other teams. This is not to say that Heroku should be reaching out to me. Like, who am I, right? They have a great product, and that's why I use it. But I would say that DigitalOcean seems to be a lot more dev-friendly than things like Heroku. So I'd imagine the app platform is going to improve a lot based off of what developers are saying, and potentially overtake other services. We'll see. Don't forget that Heroku is owned by Salesforce.com, right? So Heroku is part of a very large organization. So did I vote? Sorry for out of the topic. Let's not talk politics here. How about that? I'll just leave it at that. Is Django used for creating social media websites? Yes, Instagram is one of them. Django and Instagram. Pinterest is another one. So Pinterest and Instagram both use Django. Maybe they don't use it much anymore, but they definitely started that way. And that means that Django is scalable. Absolutely. It really depends on your, your actual network and your servers and all that, on how well you can scale, more so than something like Django. So that's something to know. So yeah. When did you start your YouTube channel? I think I started in 2014. But I as far as when I started being serious about it, maybe a year and a half ago. I think a little over a year ago, I was under 100,000 subs. I think I was at like 85,000, something like that. So about 100,000 subs in a year, which is like a lot more than I did in about 6 years, right? So we'll see where it goes. Now a lot of people think that immediately assumes that, boom, now I'm making a ton of money from YouTube. That's just not the case. Not the case at all. Are you starting a YouTube channel? Are you a guitarist? Do you teach people how to play guitar? That would be my guess. Oh, yes. Okay. So Akash responded to you, Rohan, but I get this question all the time, the difference between Django and Node.js. So it's almost like it's a better comparison is Python and Node.js. They're both runtimes, right? So Python is a runtime, Node.js is a runtime, or in this case, a runtime engine or an engine. Django itself is a web framework. So Django is a bunch of code that's in Python that creates web applications. Node.js can also be a web application as well. And the way it happens is through something called Express.js. That's probably the most popular way to do it. But something that's close to Django in JavaScript is called Adonis. There's probably a few others, but Adonis is the one I know of. So really, you'd want to compare Adonis to Django. And I don't know if they're fair comparisons because Django has been around, I believe, quite a bit longer than Adonis. So the development of either is not very far on. But Node.js is really just JavaScript. It's a JavaScript engine, JavaScript runtime for the backend. And it was a really important addition to the JavaScript community because prior to that, JavaScript was pretty much only in the browser. So yeah. And you're welcome. So you are playing guitar. Are you teaching or just playing? I'm not sure what you meant by yes. But that's cool. So I think music, one of the things I love about the music YouTube channels, especially ones that are doing covers and stuff like that. And maybe you're not doing covers, maybe you're teaching people. But the thing about the music channels is they can just grow like that. Like, I don't think there's anything else. Maybe comedy channels, maybe some like other entertainment channels, vloggers. Like there's definitely people that do that stuff. But music itself, I think, is by far the thing that's played the most on YouTube because you can hear the same song 1,000 times, right? You're probably not going to watch a PewDiePie video 1,000 times. I mean, maybe some people probably do, you know? And so I think that's really cool that you're doing music. What would be really cool is if you add software into all that too. How do you do that? Let's see here. Thanks for the super chat. Have I ever used the EEL library? Pretty great for GUI dev with JS. Yeah, so if I remember correctly, EEL allows you to run a like a web application, so JavaScript application inside of like integrated with Python. So it's kind of like Electron, but Python is the backend. Is that right? Now I know there's PY or Pi WebView. I prefer Pi WebView personally. So PY WebView versus Eel. PY WebView, I had a lot less challenge in getting up and running, and I believe their JavaScript to Python API was really cool. But yes, I have played around with Eel, not enough to just say, yeah, definitely use Eel. So you pretty great, I'd say, for GUI dev with JavaScript. Also has advantages of ExpressJS over Django, excluding 100 million users argument. Yeah, I'm not sure the whole part of what you meant by that, but thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Every little bit helps. Hey, thank you. I wish it showed the emojis here. It doesn't. But thank you. Thank you for subscribing. I'm actually curious if you are on here and you found this live chat, like what made you click? And especially if you're not subscribed, right? So if you weren't subscribed, why were you like, oh yeah, live Q&A, I'm doing that. I actually don't even know if my thumbnail came up, my live Q&A thumbnail. I don't think it did because I didn't see anywhere to set it. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. This has been fun. Yeah. Don't think there's anyone from Periscope or Facebook, which is okay. I'll still do it because why not? I got this tool now. I'll come back to you, Yokesh. 1 second. This is hilarious. You watch my virtual EMV setup video a lot. Jose, interesting. So you're close to that 1,000 marker. I definitely did not think that mine would be watched over and over. But it's not like music. Maybe there's a part of it that is where it's like, hey, it's really satisfying when it happens for you. But that's like that's on you then, right? It's not so much of what I'm producing. It's like the music that you make with your fingers and code. Man, that's so cheesy. Okay. Can I explain the difference between class-based views and function-based views? Which is better? So this is similar to like asking what's the difference between a class and a function. Okay. Similar, not completely the same, but so class-based views have a lot of convenience methods in them, and they also help you maintain state like classes do. So for example, if you wanted a specific query set for a view to be rendered, right? So you have a specific query set in mind that you want a view to render. A class-based view, you can just add that in as a property of that class, what that query set is. Or you can make a get query set method and just override that, and then it's that specific query set. And then the class-based view does everything else. That's for like a list view or a detail view. So really class-based views help shortcut common things that you'll do over and over again, right? So that's related to permissions, that's related to query sets, that's related to pretty much anything in between that, right? So forms, all sorts of stuff like that. That's not even getting into something like Django REST framework. This is more basics here. Function-based views, on the other hand, are, well, it's just simply a function. So you'll end up repeating yourself over and over again. So think about this. If you have 5 different applications, one is for blog posts, one is for user profiles, one is for products, and then a few more, right? So you got 3 there. All 3 of those are going to have very similar views for the product list view, the profiles list view, as in searching profiles, and then whatever the other one I said was. So all of those views are very similar, and class-based views already have ways to just really cut through the noise and make that happen. So I really like class-based views, but they're definitely, like, I remember when I was learning them, I just wanted to avoid them because I'm like, hey, function-based views are easy, and why even use class-based views? So this question came up to me a lot. So the way I would start using class-based views is how I'd recommend to you is to do just the base view and have different methods that handle different HTTP methods. So on the class-based view itself, you can have a get method and a post method. That is request.get and request.post. So you can absolutely do those things as a way to start. Hopefully that helps answer your question. Yeah, looks like you guys are buddies. Or you're the same person and just have multiple channels going. Do people do that? Is Google Run there? Lambda competitor? No, I don't believe it's the AWS Lambda, I believe is what you're referring to. So I don't think that so Lambda doesn't run containers. That's one thing. And it gives you runtime options, or at least it didn't used to. But I believe that AWS has a Google Run competitor now, or basically a serverless container service, right? So they'll run serverless containers. There's something, I don't remember what it is, but it's not AWS Lambda. AWS Lambda came out long before Google Cloud Run. And AWS Lambda was a really easy way to spin up a serverless application, on certain runtimes. So that limited you to what you could do. And it's also quite a bit more challenging to get those things running and working correctly. There is a tool called Zappa. I have a whole course on how to do that on AWS Lambda and Google Cloud Run for that matter. The Zappa tool made using AWS Lambda a lot easier. So yeah. Which tools are required for microservices? This is a complicated answer and a complicated question, or a really simple one. So the simple answer is this. A microservice is any service that's not your primary application. You can have a collection of microservices to make up your primary application, but whatever your primary application is, you can actually have network calls to these subservices, these microservices that build up that primary application, right? You could totally do that. And you should if you're interested in doing those things. Now, there's another tool called Kubernetes that manages all of your Docker containers that are all technically microservices. So there would be a bunch of them running. And so Kubernetes itself is like this big cluster of microservices that starts to get really complicated. But if you just want tiny little microservices, you could totally make one Flask application as your main application, or a Django application. And then inside of that, doing network calls. So whether it's HTTP calls or not, or socket calls, whatever, to other servers on your network. And those other servers do one single service, or maybe a couple of services, but they're not the primary service. So if those microservices go down, it doesn't take down your primary application. That's a big part of the idea behind microservices, is to make it sure that you don't have just one giant application. If one service breaks, the whole application comes crashing. That's what you don't want to have happen. So microservices are there so that you can have these little pieces that build up the bigger thing. And if one breaks, it's no big deal. So yeah, thanks for the question. Let's see here. Cool. Got a super chat. Thank you, Kalan. So you learned your first programming steps from me. Oh, thank you. I'm glad that I was able to help. Are you working as a programmer now, or do you have your own projects? What are you doing? Let me know. I will do videos on Fast API at some point. There's so many videos I need to do, but thank you. Yes, AWS Fargate. That's right. I totally forgot. It's definitely something I need to do. Thanks, Grizzle. Appreciate it. Is Django worth for making a game server, so serving games? Maybe, but maybe not. It's hard to say. Hard to say. I haven't actually tried to do that. I don't know if Django would be performant enough to be a game server. You'd probably want to use something that has maybe more robust asynchronous support. But really, it's going to be how you actually architecture your system behind Django. So all of your networking and your servers and all that stuff, all your DevOps and all those things. I think that's going to make the most difference. Cool. So what is white noise? So white noise is a Python package that makes it possible for Django to serve static files, or at least that's how I know it. I don't recommend using it. I recommend using a performant object storage option. So there's a lot of them out there. AWS S3 is probably the most dominant. Google Cloud has one. Linode has one. DigitalOcean has one. There's a lot of them that do that, and it's really, really inexpensive to not necessarily use white noise. And then on top of that, you can use a content delivery network to make all those things happen as well, which is even better. Next one, serverless hosting. What is this? Okay, so I mentioned serverless before. Perhaps I didn't fully explain it enough, or maybe you missed it. So I'll just say it again. So typically when you actually run a web application, you have a server that's running that web application all the time. It's like actually literally running all the time. So it's always on, essentially, right? So if you launch an app on Heroku, for example, server hosting, right? It's going to run forever unless the server goes down or the app breaks, right? So those things happen, of course, and that's when it's down. But it's meant to be running all the time. Serverless kind of changes this a little bit, and it allows you to run a web application at when it's demanded, right? So when the demand rises, the serverless application or the servers that are running the serverless application. So let's not forget, serverless does not mean there are no servers. It means that you don't have to worry about them. You just worry about your application. So there still are servers in the background that are running, and those servers will scale up your application if there's a lot of demand in there, or they'll scale it down if there's not. Now, this is not true, absolutely not true, if you are running your own server. Now, if you're running your own server and you're hosting on your own server, you can build things like load balancing and auto scaling. You can build those things into your server, but you're starting to getting into a new territory of something that a lot of web developers or application developers are just not ready to do. So DevOps and operations, or the ops team, with all the networking, the servers, and all of that, those things start to get a lot more complicated. So serverless makes all of that really, really easy. It's really cool. It ends up being a lot less expensive because the utilization is only when it's needed, right? So let's say, for instance, my website, right? I get some traffic there. It's great. But sometimes there's probably like a 5-minute period that I get no traffic every day, right? So what would be better is if all of my robust servers actually scaled down to 0, to where I'm being charged practically nothing, if not nothing, right? And if I was starting a new project, same thing, 0 until it starts to take off. Now, it can absolutely leap over to what the cost of a traditional server application would do, but maybe not even. So there are some downsides to it. One of them being that there is no runtime, right? So you can't SSH into there or go into the shell and write out shell commands. So you can't do those things. That's one of the things that it is a downside to it, which also means that you're most likely not running your worker processes on a serverless application. Good question. Or maybe I just like that question. I don't know. What class properties do you overwrite the most? Get query sets in Django, at least. That's probably the one I override all the time. I'm trying to think of other ones. Get query set. Yeah, that's the one, man. That's the one. You're not noisy. Did I miss a question of yours? Yes. Oh no, somebody else said that. I'm glad you're here chatting. What is a Django application? Is it a game? Is it a website? Oh, interesting. So now you are one who, how did you find this live stream? That is what I'm curious about. Maybe you already mentioned it. So let's see here. A Django application is a web application framework. So what that means is this website we're on right now, so YouTube, right? It has something on the server that needs to allow the server to actually run, right? Or to allow you to see that web page. So Django is a way that happens. You may have heard of WordPress. WordPress and Django can accomplish the same things, but Django is a lot more bare bones than WordPress. Django's not just for blogging, it's for all sorts of things. So definitely look into web apps or web application frameworks to learn more. Hopefully that's a very simple enough explanation as to what Django does. If not too simple, I don't know, maybe. Anyways, hey, thanks for the super chat. Would love to hear my thought process. Well, these comments get really big. I got to get like up higher. Would love to hear your thought process on making a Django app with WordPress front end highly available. WordPress used for BuddyPress social functionality similar to Facebook. I don't know how to answer this question. Okay, so how do you connect Django and WordPress? Because WordPress does have a backend and a front end. That's how WordPress works. So it's impossible to have Django as a WordPress backend. You could use a lot of the front end type functionalities WordPress has inside of a Django app, but you honestly, I don't think you can replace the WordPress backend, as far as I know. I don't know, like it's been a while since I've worked in WordPress, but what you can do, I'm going to hide this real quick so I can actually talk to you. So what you can do though is WordPress has the ability to build a REST API. So you can use Django to connect to the REST API. Django itself can also, I'm not sure if WordPress has webhooks. It probably should have webhooks itself. But the WordPress can actually connect to Django through that API somehow, right? So either Django's pulling the API or actually making the API calls, or Django sending webhooks to WordPress, and WordPress can handle things that way too. So to make the WordPress front end highly available, that's a whole different topic that's more related to your software architecture or your system architecture rather. So that's that's one of those things. That's one of those things that you're going to have to learn more about how to build highly available systems and how to host those things with something like WordPress. So I'm not sure if you want to see like what I think of doing something like BuddyPress in Django, if that's what you're asking me, because I know you can't write too much there. So let me know in the comment. I'll look out for it the next few minutes. So let me see. Coming back up a little bit here. Some reference on how to implement an IDE on Django. Ooh, that's a good question. That would be a lot of JavaScript stuff. So thanks for the question. You're working as a data scientist. Cool. That's awesome. How do you enjoy being a data scientist versus a web developer or software developer? Really curious on your thoughts there. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Thanks, Akash. I'm glad my tutorials helped. Ooh, it's getting late. I got to get going. I got a podcast in the morning. You try to build a higher ed portal within 8 months. Trial and error. Here's the website. Yeah, it blocks out websites, I think. But cool. Thanks for watching. I'm glad I was able to help. Tweet it to me. Maybe I can see it that way. It'd be really nice to be able to pull tweets in here. I just don't know how to do it. So anyways, thanks for watching. If you guys know how to use StreamYard better than me, please let me know, because I'm happy to chat with you. I probably just need to, have some time with it, playing with their banners. No, not their banners. Something with more social interactivity, because why wouldn't I be able to embed tweets here? I don't know. Isn't that silly? I think there should be more to this, or at least an HTML block. I don't know. You know what I can do though, which is awesome, is I could always use OBS to do it. You know what I mean? That is an advantage of using OBS. Okay. I have a decent sized audience. Would it be possible to create a community of solo entrepreneurs who are running a profitable Django project? Good question. I would love to know that. The challenge is, though, if you are a solo entrepreneur, are you going to join a project that's just for solo entrepreneurs running Django. Let's say if you're an entrepreneur, are you going to join like a Discord or something of just Django projects? I don't know. I don't know if you'd want to be that niche. Maybe it's like Coding Entrepreneurs Discord, something that I'll have for my members on codingforentrepreneurs.com here soon. Soonish, I should say, not too soon. Videos on REST API, use the Django REST framework. Already have a bunch of those, but thank you. Wonder Trisha. Okay. I'm not leaving just yet, but soon. Soon, I promise I'm leaving soon. This is probably one of my longer live streams, and I meant to go on for like 30 minutes, but you guys kept asking good questions, and now it's an hour and 30 minutes later. Your website is a single page application in some places and multi in other. How do you achieve that? So I use a good amount of caching on my website, and I actually serve the so depending on what page you go to and when you go to it, I have Django actually handling some of the views that then get handed over to React for that. It's probably not the most efficient, but since I'm using caching, it allows for it. And it's only because I'm trying to protect against SEO things that I had with my Django application when it was just Django. I could do server-side rendering with React that would actually help solve a lot of those problems. I just haven't spent enough time doing server-side rendering with React on Django. Maybe at some point I will. But at this point, I'm just doing it the way I'm doing it. Caching for the win and all of that. So yeah, definitely long answers here. Absolutely. Like I give way too much context sometimes, and I realize that, and especially if it's the same context over and over, it's like, oh man, why so much context? But you're curious. Don't be sorry. Curiosity is a good thing. That's how you find new things out. How do I use a token-based authentication in Django's pre-built login system? What do you mean by token-based authentication in this case? Do you mean a one-time password token type thing? If that's what you mean, there are one-time password packages. If you mean token authentication for an API, look into the REST API framework. That's probably the best way to do it. Oh yeah, just answer that. Okay. Do you use Stimulus.js with Django? No. Should I? I haven't. Thanks for the question, Ivan. Okay, guys. What uses Django as a streaming server? Who is this? Tell me. Jiri? Django versus Flask for an ML server? Probably Flask or Fast API. Django is just really big, so you'd want to keep your ML server really small because it's going to go down a lot. Or at least that's what I think, because you're going to want to change things a lot and all that. Your Django application has users, it has all this stuff. So the Django application can still be the main application, and then your machine learning server being like a microservice that's next to it. What is this website that uses Django as a streaming server? Somebody please tell me. Because Django as a video streaming server would be incredibly interesting to see. You're more of a math background, so data science is pretty good. More of research side with ML. Software development engineering is fun doing it, but yeah, data science is hard. It gives you training models, mainly deploying them. Blah, blah, blah. Yep. I've heard that a lot of people that, a lot of people that do data science for a job that came from computer programming were really hoping to just spend a lot of time in building models, but they end up spending a lot more time in building like reports and querying the database for a report than anything else, which is unfortunate because there's so many cool and interesting things for data science. And it looks like some of you want to hear me teach data science a lot more or at all. I don't think I have anything related to data science on YouTube. Maybe at some point. Okay. I hear Docker and Kubernetes a lot from you. Can you explain both of them and their use case? So Docker is, well, let's actually take a step back from Docker and Kubernetes. This might be the last question I answer. So Docker is a way to put a web application, not always a web application, but definitely a web application. Like when you actually, let me take another step back here, collect my thoughts because I've been on this for probably too long. So when you actually create a web application, your server that you want to put it on has all sorts of dependencies it needs in order for you to actually run that application. So if you want to copy that application and put it onto another server, that same server needs a bunch of dependencies on there. A good example of a dependency that the server would need is Python, right? That's a very simple one, but that's a good example. It needs Python, and probably the Python version that you want your application to run. So that is where Docker comes in. Docker, you actually just write this file. It's called a Docker file. And you can say Python, like you can actually use the Python Docker image, whatever Python version you want, and boom, you already know that Python's installed on this Docker. And then you can just run all of the other commands that you might need to set up your project, like pip install or something along those lines. So that's Docker, right? That's actually containers. So it's a self-isolated. It's almost like a virtual machine. It's not quite a virtual machine, but it's almost like having a virtual machine where you control most of the environment itself on this really simple, easy to use thing. And if the server has Docker running, it can run the containers as well. So the next thing is Kubernetes. So when it comes to Kubernetes, Docker, well, here's the problem. When you start to have a lot of containers, you start to go, how do I manage all these containers, right? So if you have pretty much more than one container, you're going to start thinking, I've got my Django container, Django in a Docker container, and I need to have a microservice for my machine learning application in another container. How do I actually connect those two things? Or how do I manage them? Or how do I scale them up or scale them down? That's where Kubernetes comes in. Kubernetes now manages all of these little itty bitty containers, and it does it in a way that's really, really scalable and really easy. Or easy enough, right? It's still a little tricky to get there, but they're great tools for each other. So Kubernetes uses Docker. Docker doesn't necessarily use Kubernetes, but Kubernetes orchestrates all of these Docker containers to make a robust service. Hopefully that sells it enough. I really need water and I need to get to bed. Oh yeah, I need to get to bed. Okay, a couple more things. Okay, so Malti, thank you for watching all my tutorials. I appreciate it. Maybe not all of them. There's no way you've watched all of them. Has anyone watched all of them? There's probably no way that anyone's watched all of them except for me. But thank you. You have to pay $4,000 for a diploma course in AI and machine learning. Can you please update here about your future courses in AI and ML domain? Are you going to pay me $4,000? No, I'm just kidding. Probably not. But you could if you want to. You really could. Okay, so the things that I want to do in machine learning and AI aren't typically for diploma-ready ones, right? So what I'm going to be doing is more for like business-like use cases, or even, even just like for fun, right? You can do them for fun or for like video processing or YouTubing or whatever. Like there's all sorts of things that you can do with machine learning and AI that I do intend to cover at some point. Some of the things that are, I have done machine learning and AI a little bit. So OpenCV, I have a whole series on that. That's open computer vision. Computer vision is a subsection of machine learning. So I definitely have stuff on it, but I think you're more referring to how do you actually build these things from scratch, not use someone else's tool like OpenCV. So OpenCV is a great tool, but how do you build OpenCV, I think, is more the question. It's not easy, but what I want to do is I want to pick several projects that I find interesting, figure out how to solve those projects myself using machine learning and AI, and then teach about them. I don't love teaching for teaching's sake. I love teaching when it solves a problem that I have in a project, and machine learning and AI are continuously doing that. Okay. I think I need to go. I could probably stay on here for a lot longer because you guys are asking some good questions, but you guys, that's going to have to be it for this broadcast. Thanks so much for watching. I had a good time answering these questions. Hopefully I have a number of you even more interested in building applications and making cool things happen. It all starts with picking a project and doing it, just going after that project. I have a lot of things that will help you with that, but so does a lot of the internet. Google is a really good friend of mine because I use it all the time, really, to find posts on Stack Overflow. But I think software is amazing. I have so much fun doing it, and I really enjoy teaching it because it makes me that much better at it. So I do recommend that people do that as well. But anyways, thanks so much for joining in this live chat. I will chat with you guys again maybe in less than 12 hours now. So in less than 12 hours, I'm going to be talking with Danny Thompson on another podcast chat, which is really just one of these with somebody else here with me. And I'll be asking him questions instead of you guys asking me questions. But bring your questions there because I think it's going to be fun chatting with him. And I think the quality of this thing has been amazing. So StreamYard, you're awesome. I think we need to actually get them as a sponsor. That would be awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Chat with you soon. Have a good one.